President Tinubu charges newly sworn-in ministers to be trustworthy, accountable and transparent. Your house will go down. New Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, threatens to demolish illegal buildings within the nation's capital. Vice President Shatiba heads to South Africa to represent President Tinubu at the BRICS summit. And outside of Nigeria, Gabon's opposition parties cry foul over last-minute change to voting rules. Democratic Republic of Congo begins Prime Minister Augustin Matata's trial of a $205 million embezzlement. Tonight in Politics HQ, we will be discussing the last-minute changes to the ministers' portfolios, and my guest is Senator Adesheye Ogunlewe, an APC chieftain and a former minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We also have Prince Kasim Afegwa, a public affairs analyst. Stay with us, Politics HQ. We'll be right back. Nigeria's new ministers were sworn in earlier today, Monday, with some changes made to the initial announcement by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The ministers who will be resuming the ministries are expected to swing into action immediately, with the massive expectations on their shoulders, despite mixed reactions that trailed the announcement of the portfolios, especially with the absence of the Minister of Niger Delta Development. President Tinubu on Sunday evening announced the redeployment of Abubakar Momoh from the Ministry of Youth. Other reshuffling also saw Gboyega Oyetola redeployed to the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy from the Ministry of Transportation, while Saidu Alkali was named the new Minister of Transportation. Bumi Tunjojo has been named the new Minister of Interior and has left his position as a member of the House of Representatives. Nigerians have since expressed their opinions about their ministers, and the president's task is their appointees to perform to expectations. On Politics HQ tonight, I have with me Senator Adesheye Ogunlewe, APC chieftain and a former minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I also have Prince Kasim Afegwa, public affairs analyst, who joins us live from Abuja. One welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Politics HQ. I'd like to start with you, Senator Ogunlewe. You're a former minister and senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Could you take us through the documentation process, and how important is it now that after 60 days plus, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has finally sworn in their ministers and they would get to work?
Well, under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, everybody who is a public officer, ministers, and so on, must declare their assets and fill code of conduct bureau forms, get security clearance, so that you will be able to, before getting ready for the swearing in. After the swearing in today, I will expect on Wednesday, when they are having the first council meeting, that they should be given what we call assignment of ministerial responsibility, which will list out their functions, their expectations, their policy implementation, and KIP. That is, one month you are supposed to achieve this, second month you are supposed to achieve this. They must be properly guided. If they are not guided about the policy to be implemented, the tendency for an individual minister is to initiate his own policy.
Now, sorry to interrupt you, who will do this guiding? Is it the civil servants?
It's the presidency.
Okay.
It's the presidency. You know, you can form committee of permanent secretaries who are very vast in the activities of each ministry, and they are very knowledgeable. They can draw up, they've done it severally, they can draw up assignment for each ministry, because there will be cross function now. You have created out of this ministry a few of these other ministries. So how do we now separate the staff? There'll be a lot of staff movement.
Yes.
We'll call, then somebody who is in the Ministry of Information is information and culture at that time. But culture has been moved to another ministry now.
Now, before I move to Prince Kasima Fegwa, the president has been running with a retinue of special advisors before this point in time. Are we going to see a more responsive government and quicker actions now that the ministers have been sworn in?
Oh, definitely, definitely. They will be guided by their permanent secretary. You know, there are so many other agencies. There are directorates in each ministry. We expect each minister to sit down and get briefing from each of the departments, sections, divisions in the ministry. And the permanent secretary will coordinate for him. So that you have a picture, you know, a broad-based picture of what has been happening in the ministry and what needed to be done. How much money do we have in the appropriation, which is going to, is still running. So a lot of work internally must also be done initially for the man to settle down and perform his duties.
Thank you very much, Senator Ogulere, for that and giving us the inner workings of how these things work at the ministerial level. Now, Prince Fegwa, the reshuffling of ministers such as Abubakar Momoh, last-minute reshuffling, and Gboyega Oyetola raises questions about the motives behind these changes. Could you elaborate on some of the factors that might have influenced these decisions, and how do you anticipate this shift impacting the respective ministers? Because you have a situation where someone just a week ago we thought was going to be transport minister and now is minister for marine and the blue economy. What do you make of this?
Sorry, hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sorry, there was having an incoming call, so that was trying to disrupt
should I don't mind taking that question again.
Yeah, please repeat the question, yeah.
Now, I said the reshuffling of ministers, this last-minute reshuffling, such as Abubakar Momoh and Gboyega Oyetola, raises questions about the motivations behind these changes. Could you elaborate on the factors that might have influenced these decisions, and how do you anticipate this shift impacting the respective ministers? Because you have a situation that just a few days ago, a certain minister was preparing to take portfolio in the transport ministry, and he's now been sworn in as Minister of Marine and the Blue Economy. What do you make of this, Prince?
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy you have a former minister sitting by you. It is the prerogative of the president to allocate portfolios to men and women he has chosen to serve him as ministers, because he alone understands his vision and his agenda in government. He alone knows the kind of men and women that will fit into one particular portfolio and the other. And so what happened in the case of the Niger Delta, those of us from Niger Delta, we made a case that we need that ministry to be revised, because we heard that it was scrapped, and we felt that that would amount to injustice, to the zone. And so we made a case, the PANDEF had a meeting, wrote an elaborate letter to the president. And in the process of that, I think the president considered, bringing back the ministry. And so Abubakar Momoh, who was initially allocated Minister for Youth, had to be taken to the Niger Delta ministry. When they appointed him, a few persons were saying, how can you appoint a 63 or 64-year-old man as Minister for Youth?
Yes.
They want to.
Now, still staying with you on that question of his appointment, does it matter that Mr. Momoh is not from the region and is not familiar with, is not someone from the Niger Delta? Does it really affect his competence?
He's from the Niger Delta. He's from Edo State. I'm from Edo State. He's from Edo State. So we are part and parcel of the Niger Delta. And
thank you for that clarification.
He's very conversant with the region. He's been a two-time member of the House of Reps. He's served in committees that have stuff to do with Niger Delta. He's very capable and competent, and we know that he's going to deliver on his mandate. But essentially, we have seen the 45 men and women who will be presiding over respective ministries and to champion the aspiration of the president as containing the Renew Hope agenda. And so what we need to do is to encourage them and give them the necessary support for them to discharge their responsibilities based on the terms of reference that they will be given. And so we have no doubt in our mind, particularly myself, I'm an incurable optimist in the capacity of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president, to move this country from where it is now to something more edible, something more palatable, because he didn't inherit the best of times, but he's coming at a time that we have so much challenges. And so because of his courage, his determination, his commitment, and sense of patriotism, I know that he's going to move these 45 men to work for the good well-being of the country.
Thank you very much, Prince Fogberg. I would like to pick up from there, Senator Ogunlewe. He said their work is quite caught up for them with the inauguration of those 45 ministers by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There's surely a weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Senator, as a former minister, could you break down some of the key challenges and tasks that they will be taking on in their new roles and assignments? And what do you think will be their immediate priorities as they settle into the work of governance? Yes.
The main albatross to our national development is the attitude of members of the National Assembly to tinker with the budget.
You were a former member of the National Assembly.
Yes, I had the experience as a senator, then I had the experience as a minister. The two together. The party must maintain a lot of discipline so that the national plan will not be distorted. Members of the National Assembly have responsibility to their constituencies. They also want to satisfy them in terms of projects, in terms of bringing, dividend of democracy, to speak to them.
And it's an elected position.
And it's an elected position. But what is lacking is how do you harmonize the two? The tendency of a member of National Assembly to his own constituency and maintaining the national budget and the policy and plan of the party.
The Balancing Act.
The Balancing Act. The manifesto of the New Down. So what I have been advocating is for members of the National Assembly to submit every proposal to the respective ministries. If you want to provide electricity in your constituency, bring the project to the Ministry of Power. If you want borehole, bring the project to the Ministry of Water Resources. If you want road, bring the project to the Ministry of Works. Whatever you want, let it be coordinated by the Ministry of Works and put or inserted into their respective budgets.
But by doing that, it wouldn't seem like, this project is coming from me, and they might lose some of those political capital they get when they put, a borehole or a project done by
No, it comes to the party. It's an APC government. Whatever you are doing will never be ascribed to you. It's ascribed to your party. You are representing your party. You are not an independent candidate. So whichever project you do in your constituency can be attributed to the party. So where do we coordinate the two? This distortion is really very, very, disturbing to the minister, because the minister will prepare a very copious budget, well articulated. They take it to the National Assembly and it's padded. We add another 300 projects or 400 projects into the budget, not initiated by the ministry.
So how can the ministers resist the urge to pad?
They are handicapped. Under the Constitution, appropriation is the responsibility of the National Assembly. And they have the liberty to tinker with it, to dismantle it, to add, to subtract. So there is that kind of disconnect between the effort of the National Assembly and that of the minister. And they can injure the minister very, very effectively, easily. They will just give you peanut into a project that is 50 billion naira, and they give you 1 billion naira. So it will take 50 years to complete that project. That is the bane of all the abandoned projects we have in this country. Incomplete project is a product of reduction in the appropriation.
So what can Mr. President do as the leader of the party about this?
Very good. You have to form a party caucus. The leadership of National Assembly will be part of that caucus. Then they will meet with Mr. President, the Vice President, the chairman of the party, the secretary of the party. They sit down together and plan for the country so that they will have accommodated all the projects, all tendencies of members of the National Assembly, which will be submitted to their principal officers.
And it will be a win-win situation at the end of the day.
But it will be coordinated. It's the lack of coordination that is very disturbing. The minister is helpless. No matter how brilliant you are, once they distort your budget, you wait for another year.
What do you work with?
What do you work with? And your contractor will be injured. And he will abandon the project and move away.
Quite an unfortunate situation. We hope they look into it. Thank you.
Believe it or not, most prominent contractors, they've left the country because they are bankrupt. Only Julius Berger is number 36 in the world that can survive in our environment. Other contractors have left.
Very serious situation.
It's a very bad situation because you budget every year for a project that will last for 4 years. This year you provide enough, the contractor will mobilize, get on site. The next year, for whatever reason, you reduce the budget by half. And you are already owing that contractor.
So it makes the entire situation.
It will just back up.
Yes. Thank you, Senator Oglewe. Let me bring in Prince Afegboa back into the conversation. Now, Prince, as ministers are redeployed and new ones, as the ministers assume their responsibility, how will this impact the overall functioning and effectiveness of the Nigerian government, this new government that has hit the ground running with so much expectations from ordinary Nigerians? And what will be a reasonable time to assess their performances? And looking at the person of Mr. President, do you think he will be keen on reshuffling his cabinet when you have situations of non-performance? Because looking at the last administration, there were ministers that stayed the entire 8 years in his cabinet, and it was quite adamant to, make changes.
Well, thank you very much. Let me quickly respond or react to the position taken by, distinguished Senator Adesanya Ogunlewe. I know him very well. I know he's a very courageous and very bold speaker. He knows how to articulate the issues. Talking about the issue of ministers and distorted budget, essentially the issue of pardon. I think in previous administration, I don't expect that to happen in this administration. There was some kind of disconnection between the government, the cabinet, the government and even the party. Because under a democracy, there has to be a robust engagement amongst both cabinet members, government itself, the presidency, the party, and even the parliament, for them to understand and key into a national agenda that speaks to delivery of goods and services, to meet the expectations and the yearnings of Nigerians. You see, the idea of budgeting, it has to be a constructive, a robust engagement that is symbiotic. You don't come up with a budget in the ministry and you present to National Assembly and you don't expect National Assembly to ask questions. You don't expect them to interrogate questions. I happen to work in the APC Governors Forum sometimes as a media consultant. And there was a time we were looking at the budget, issue of budgeting. We discovered that it's almost like a stereotype. What they present this year is what the civil servants will put together and present next year. There could be a little bit of tinkering with the subheads. But at the end of the day, you see that even issue of tabulation, you see like 1 billion being missing out. At times you see 2 billion missing out. Just the issue of tabulation, just to add figures together. So people are always in a hurry, either the budget office or the ministries, they are always in a hurry. They don't have the time to sit down with their desk officers to look at the various subheads when they are preparing budgets. So when it gets to National Assembly, scenarios such as...
Yeah, but you have an entire year to prepare this budget.
Let me land. You see, Parliament all over the world, particularly in the presidential system of government, they play oversight function, whether at the budgeting stage or at the execution stage. In the US, there's what they call Government Accountability Office. It's an instrument, an office, of the Parliament they use to checkmate the executive in terms of budget and budget proposals. And so it's not new here. When you say budget being padded, don't expect that if you take 50 billion to National Assembly, if you don't provide enough information and you expect that that 50 billion will be passed. No. It depends on the kind of communication and constructive engagement between the Parliament and the ministry on the one hand, and even the presidency. So that's why I would prefer a situation where you have the party chairman, the president himself, the vice president and the ministers and Parliament having, a meeting point to look at the issues of Parliament. Okay, we have 1 trillion naira to spend this accounting year. How do we appropriate this money and all of that? So that in the final analysis, this idea of padding, which is becoming a negative term in Nigeria, will not continue, because you need to get your governance structure right, as well as getting your political structure right. So I would want a situation where there will be more robust communication amongst all the different players and factors that help to present a budget that will impact on the well-being of Nigerians. That is one. Secondly, you see, I share the sentiments he expressed with respect to you have a job of 40 billion. I remember a particular road from Kano to Bauchi, the expressway. It was being handled by Dantata and Sawu. At some point, that contract was about 30 billion. I remember a particular year they voted 800 million in the budget and said there was no money. So by the time you present 800 million in the contract of 30 billion, you are almost like predicting that in 20 years' time that road will not be completed. But I thank God that now that particular road has been completed and is being put to use. What I want to advise generally is that President Tinubu, the expectation is quite high on him. People are expecting that he's going to perform magic. He's not going to perform magic. He's going to manage our scarce resources in such a way that we'll expect that he will be able to achieve at least the optimum in his Renew Hope agenda. He's got his blueprint, which he campaigned with, upon which a mandate was given. And I'm expecting that when he's given these ministers their terms of reference, he will draw a lot of inspiration from that Renew Hope agenda, so that whatever they achieve, whatever they do, will fall in line with his vision and agenda. Then the ministers, well, they have been appointed now. We are not expecting magic in the next 1 month, 2 months, but I was happy to see Nyesom Wike, Minister for the FCT, already hitting the ground running. He has granted press conference today. He has set his own tone of what to expect. He's talked about land grabbers. He has talked about shanties. He's talked about CFO. He's talked about uncompleted projects in some city centers, and all of that. That is already giving a roadmap to what to expect. So once he's able to carry the public along and is able to speak to the issues, I think the kind of cooperation he would need to achieve whatever he set for himself and for the government, he will be able to achieve it. But essentially, we should give them 6 months to begin to look at what he can do. But don't forget that President Tinubu, if you come to your cabinet FEC meeting, Federal Executive Council meeting, and you are unable to speak to issues concerning your ministry, he's one man who can easily hire and fire. You will just hear your name that you have been removed from the position the following day on television. He did it when he was governor of Lagos, and I know he will also do it in this time around.
Thank you very much, Prince Efegwa. Just before we wrap up, I would like Senator Ogulere to have the final say. Looking at the overall composition of Mr. President's cabinet, how important is it for for the ministers to have relevant experience and expertise in their assigned portfolios? We have a situation where Mr. Kiyamo, who has no background in aviation as Minister of Aviation. And of course, your background is in law and you were Minister of Works and Housing. So does it make a difference?
No. I'm coming from a different background. I worked in Lagos State for about 35 years. And almost all my life, I was in works.
Yes.
I was the general manager of Public Works Corporation. We started under Jakonde, and we participated actively in constructing so many roads, over 10,000 housing units, schools, 22,000 classrooms. So from that background,
yes.
I have a lot of knowledge about how to manage, a Ministry of Works. So my own experience is that once you have basic education, exposure, and experience, if you get to the ministry, it depends. You have people on ground, staff, directors, who have been in that ministry for years to assist you. It depends on your now interaction and relationship with them. They will try and assist you to perform your duty. It is now depend on application, capacity to manage the resources of that ministry, the personnel, the work, and inspect, hold meetings, move out, listen to advice. People there are so many people.
But some, Senator, some people have said that, looking at the myriad of problems that the country is facing, we can't afford a situation where ministers learning on the job, that we should have to lie. Square pegs and round holes.
No. Once you get to the ministry, they already have their plan. But you also have friends who you can, tap knowledge from. You are not isolated.
Now you can get advices.
You can get advices. You can talk to people. Don't close your door. Some people have a lot of ideas. They want to interact with you, but you are not accessible. What can they do? You can never be fine one thing in this country if you listen, if you interact with people, if you are ready to be advised. You will get plenty, and you will be able to perform well and assess whatever you are going to do. I wish them all the best of luck. They must be open their doors, listen to people, interact with your minister, with your staff. Don't be hostile to them because they will hide so many information from you. You have to be friendly with directors, with even the staff. No matter how junior they are in the ministry, they can be of help to you.
Now, talking about the inner workings of a minister, how often do you get to have audience with Mr. President and give feedback on development? And does it depend on the person who is sitting as commander-in-chief?
Very much so. If the president lock his door, the minister will also sit in the office. But if you are on top of everything, and you can, the president will also have audience almost on daily basis on people who are complaining. They will complain to him. Some will call him. He must also open his own gate too. Have his email address where you can, if you want to complain, call this number. If you want to complain about this, call this number. Let the thing get to him. He will not call the minister to order. He said it's an hourly work for him. And the type of person that Bola Tinubu is, you cannot imagine the level of information he will collect from ordinary people on the street. He will get information. It's not going to relent. Once you are not performing to your maximum as a minister, you'll be surprised he will just kick you out. Don't believe that you will not hear. No matter what you do in the ministry, it's on top of it.
Thank you, Senator Ogulu. Prince Fegwa did echo the same sentiments about Mr. President's performance indices of kicking up non-performing appointees. Now, Prince Fegwa, as we wrap up this conversation, our economies, like you said earlier, Mr. President didn't inherit the best of times, and Nigerians are really groaning on the removal of subsidy issue, and the economy is priority for lots of Nigerians, their expectations. Now, with the Ministry of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, in charge, his dual role as Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, how might this role impact fiscal policies and the overall economy? Is he the right fit to address the current economic challenges? If you can in less than a minute, I appreciate it. If you can answer in less than a minute. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think the Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy is very competent and able. He has the capacity and intellectual know-how to manage that ministry. To complement that, the government must, as a matter of priority, appoint an economist to preside over the CBN. You will need an economist to preside over the CBN so that both of them can speak the language of economy. Because oftentimes we just bring accountants, we bring all manners of discipline masters in MBA and all of that. They don't speak to the fiscal issue, the monetary policy issues of the economy. We need people who can interrogate figures, who can also forecast and predict what is likely to happen to our in terms of our finances and even the global projection and all of that. But we don't have that. So we need an economist to preside over the CBN as much as we now have an economist presiding over the finance and the coordinating minister of the economy. And there is nothing bad in championing a particular policy framework. If it is not working, you beat a retreat because there are no determinable endpoint when it comes to economic solutions. Economy is all about trial and error. I have read quite a number of literatures talking about how to bail out countries from economic situations. You see that oftentimes it's based on trial and error. If you assemble 10 economists in a room for them to give you an idea of how to rescue
I really wish we could go on, Prince Fegba, but we have to go at this point. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Senator Adeshe Ogunlewe, APC chieftain and a former Minister of the Federal Republic of Niger, and of course to you, Prince Kasim Afegwa, Public Affairs Analyst, joining from Abuja. We do appreciate your time and your insights on Politics HQ tonight. Thank you.